So many years ago, I'm trying to find myself. I'm fairly new in recovery. 12 steps, something that was just completely foreign to me. I didn't grow up having an understanding about, recovery, 12-step programs, or any type of situations like that. So when I entered into that world, I really just kind of stuck to myself. Like anything else. I always felt like I had to do things alone. And at the end of the day, I knew that I can trust me and only me, and depend on me and only me. And I thought that's the way that life had to be. So I started to meditate, and I would go to this group meditation meeting, and it was
Santa
at 7
Monica.
a.m. I'm gonna introduce you right now. I'm telling the story. My bad.
I know,
forgot to
bet.
tell you how it
I'm
is.
adding on Santa Monica, Poppy.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
7:30
then
a.m. meeting.
7:30 a.m.
That's right.
7 a.m. And then so I would go to this meeting. I would go by myself, do the meeting, and immediately after I would leave. And like I said, I felt like that's the way that my life had to be. Like I had to be alone. I had to do things alone. And then one day I was leaving the meeting, and I was approached by someone, and just a gentle gesture. And he asked me my name, and I introduced myself to him, and I was kind of tripping out, like, why does this guy want to know me, And we just started to talk, and we started to realize how much we had in common. He had been through a lot of things in life. I had been through a lot of things in life, and he was somebody at that time in my life I felt like was heaven sent. I felt like an angel, like he was an angel, and he would pray with me, and he would pray for me. And we would sometimes just sit in the car, and, and all we could do is pray. We didn't know where our lives were headed. We didn't know what to expect. We had hopes, but not really. We didn't have an understanding of what we even needed to pray for. But we knew to pray. We knew to pray. And for, I believe that God, put us in each other's paths to be there for each other, to understand one another, and to build this relationship that would be like a brotherhood, and it's my privilege to be sitting with that gentleman right now on the Say Less podcast, powered by Tepito Coffee, and I want to introduce Adam.
Thank you so much, Jose. My name is Adam. I'm a grateful believer in miracles. And you're a miracle. And, that time was so formative. We're an odd-looking couple, bro. We're spiritual brothers. Like, right. We're bonded and united in the realm of the spirit. Mm-hmm. And, for context, let's call it out. You were living at Salvation Army.
Yeah.
I had just lost my mom. For context, too, within myself, I am an executive music producer. I've been a part of shaping the airways of television and film for over 15 years. And I found myself, after losing my mom, with financial success, renting a home in Malibu for the summer, and I wanted to die. And I would attend these meetings in the morning. It was like a morning meditation. Man, my skin was on fire, literally. And I remember seeing you being of service. You were like, it was like a beautiful room, and there was like meditation, and then people would share where one person's helping another. I really believe God is. So we both found God in the recovery meetings, in the 12-step meetings. Yeah. And I remember seeing you, and like just something was kind of different, and we connected. And I actually won't ever forget the first time we sat for coffee. You opened up to me about losing your mom while you were in prison. And I'll just never forget the way you experienced like the pain and what it felt like being fully, completely alone, know? And there's this thing I like to say, because in the spiritual walk of my faith in my life, I believe like ashes don't mean abandonment. And I believe there's times in our lives when it can feel like we're completely abandoned, but we're not. And often God will use people to throw us a lifeline. And like somehow we became knitted together during that time. Yeah. And it looked really simple. It looked like me calling you and saying, hey, come, like, let's pray together for a moment. You know, we would turn over our fears. And, you know, at the time, I mean, I remember there was so much humility. Like, you're like, I'll serve anywhere. And I remember, like, with your job was like even janitorial, and we would pray over your career. And, like, you know, there was this connection that I found with, I had lost my mom. My mom died of addiction. It was really tragic. You know, this shared identification of what it felt like being an orphan. And, you know, what's so amazing is that I believe there's a God that redeems all of that. We're sitting here 10, 11 years later. You are honored as a representative on a national scale to impact culture, and you're doing it. I'm sitting here just in the beginnings of starting a movement in LA.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just like a story like we couldn't even write.
Exactly.
But I want to say part of that story is what I couldn't find in searching, I found in serving.
Beautiful.
And
Beautiful
you exemplify service, man. I'm looking at a man today that helps thousands of people.
Well, that's pretty much how we got to where we're at.
Yeah.
Was in service. You know, all we knew, our best thought was to, one is be of service, but then also kind of be in community and start and begin to trust, you know, pray. It was very simple, but yet hard. And that's what they talk about the program. It's a simple program, but it's hard to do because it kind of flips everything on its back. You know what I mean? You think that you need to build this life for yourself and it's about getting, it's about attaining. But it's actually about being of service and providing, you know, whatever you find on this path, whatever it is, like the lessons that you learn, you know, the moments that you're given that you can just be an ear to somebody, a shoulder to lean on. Yeah. Like those are the moments, as crazy as it sounds, is where you find the most peace, where you find the most, like, you know, liberation.
Absolutely, bro. Man. I also feel like I've shared this with people that I mentor. I believe service is the rocket fuel that propels us into our calling. And it's really simple. You know, you also mentioned about community. I also recently someone asked me a really powerful question. You know, in my personal life, I'm walking a lot of success, and right now success looks for me, you know, bringing light to this world in powerful ways. You know, but just to touch on real quick,
and I want to go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, someone asked me when my younger self, like, what would I tell my younger self?
That's
right?
what I want to get into. Okay, I want to get into, because I want the audience to know. Like, I want to go back. I want to go. I just want to get into now, like, what it was like. I want to get into a little bit of your upbringing, where you came from. You know what I mean? What those early years were like for young Adam Malka.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. And, you know, and just one other touch point is mentioning service and community. One thing I would say to my younger self was, like, it wasn't like, oh man, I wish you broke up, you left this girl or this job or changed something. It was, I wish I could tell Adam, a younger Adam, that he really needed to be tethered amongst brotherhood and community. There's a strength in strands and cords and connections together. That's something I get to walk out now. But I really believe in developing healthy intimacy with men.
That's right.
Has actually met and fed so many of my...
so tell me why, though. Yeah. Tell me why. Let's go to the beginning.
So let's go to the beginning.
Was it like? Okay. What was your upbringing like?
My upbringing is unique. You know, I grew up in a family where my dad was an immigrant from Israel.
Okay.
That married my mom, who's American. First generation. My dad's the oldest of 12. My mom had a radical encounter with God in the 70s. So I grew up in the faith, the first generation of Jewish people that were connected to Christianity, and it was a unique experience where I experienced both the power of, like, intimacy with God through my mom. We'd read scriptures together, and I also experienced, like, the reverence of, like, wow, like this awesomeness and gratefulness of God. And so I kind of grew up as a young kid also obsessed with music and passionate about music. One thing I want to note is that, like, often there's just so much of a tethering in our story where, like, I didn't even realize, but God was directing me later to my job. But like, I became super passionate about just listening, finding artists and music in Philadelphia. I grew up on the East Coast.
Because your dad was a musician.
My dad was a
right?
jazz saxophone player who's traveled all around the world. He was in a band that kind of looked like the Beatles in the 60s or 70s, and so there's an influence around music. But Philly's a rich cultural city around music, and so I just grew up as kind of like a hybrid kid, like an alternative emo kid, but like I loved hip hop music, and so. My best friend later became an incredible hip-hop producer that worked music and produced music for Jay-Z. That's a little bit part of my story is we also grew up with Kobe Bryant. There's just like a unique element.
You went to high school with Kobe,
I went to high school with Kobe.
Because Kobe's a part of your story.
Kobe's actually part of the inception story of my company, Signature Tracks, which writes music for a predominant amount of music on the television airways right now. So part of my story was
definitely get into all that. So definitely young Adam. Tell me, young Adam. Young Adam, what was it like growing up? Pops as a musician.
I mean, to keep it real,
Mom's just trying to serve the Lord.
I want to just share interpersonally. I dealt with I think my deepest need was to have a mom that would attune to me, and what attunement means to be seen, but also getting their needs met. My mom actually struggled with some of her own addiction issues as it relates to addiction, and I saw her get sober. So at about 8 or 9 years old, I grew up with my mom flourishing and growing up. In recovery, but I want to share that.
So you got to kind of have an understanding about recovery, a sense of it early on. At a young age.
I was in like Alateen, and I just always felt that like recovery is like we're in the realm of the spirit, man. That's like I felt that connection. What happened was my mom
back then when you were young.
When I was younger, I did feel connection because there was so much serenity as I watched my mom's life transform. My mom was sober 18 years and helped.
You were happy. You were happy for your mom and seeing her progress.
Yeah, it was just a beautiful experience because I watched out these principles, which I think are scripturally driven.
So how long did that happen? How long was she sober?
My mom she was sober 18 years, and then doctor gave her like a pill for an IBS symptom, and then it kind of went off to the races. She was back in some addiction to benzos, and then I was in my 20s when that happened. So I kind of dealt with like this experience of watching my mom live and walk out her purpose. I believe her purpose was to help people. I think that there's a mantle I've been able to carry from her and move it forward. And so flash forward, I'm a kid that left Philly, went to business school, came out to California right around the same time that Jay-Z and there was like an explosion of incredible hip-hop music was reaching the globe. My business partner, Russell, got to work with some incredible artists and producers. And
he had a couple of tracks on Jay-Z's album.
He wrote on Jay-Z's.
Which album was that?
So Kobe introduced Russell to Jay-Z.
Okay.
Russell produced music the same time Kanye came out on Volume 3, which was Jay-Z's third album. It was
you, Kobe, Dave, Russell all went to high school together, right?
We all went to high school together. Kobe moved out, my business partners, to LA.
Got you.
To work on Kobe's rap album.
Kobe moved out, Russell and Dave, or just Russ at the time?
Russell, and then Dave kind of just like dropped out of college and moved out with him.
I don't know how many people know Kobe. Yeah. But Kobe actually was going to pursue music.
Yeah, that's a whole nother. We could go there.
Story.
We could go there
a little bit, but that's kind of the inception of Sig.
The inception of the company I own, Signature Tracks, was really Kobe gave Russell a break. Russell and I started writing music together. I came for fun and for free, and then David, who kind of came up with an idea to write music for score for television and film. I thought it was a joke. My heart was like, I want to be.
So let me ask you this: Did he meet with you guys and run the idea by you, and you just kind of thought nothing of it? Tell me how that conversation went.
Okay, great. This is fun. This is part of your personality. You just ask. You go deep, and you want the real granular details. Let's go in on it. So, this idea was something that was a kind of a vision from my friend David, who's working in television. He saw that the music and TV.
He saw the opportunity.
He just saw the music wasn't sounding good. So we decided to pursue music.
The music on television.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he decided that, he felt like the music wasn't like kind of like wallpapered, and he saw a need for us to bring cutting edge music, like label music to television. I thought it was a joke. I wanted to be Coldplay's producer. I was like, man, I want to write for like all these different artists. So I took a little bit of my business school background and a lot of the experience of working in a writing camp with Russell. And we formed this company, which ended up being like our first sort of music production library. We got hired on a major network show. We were hired on a major network show.
What show was it?
It was a CW major. It was a series that it was called Hitch or Ditch, where people got married or broke up like within a week.
Okay.
You could take a couple and like they did have their dream wedding.
Hitch or Ditch. It was
Hitch
called.
or Ditch. It was an experience where I got to sit in the edit bays and work with very talented producers in television, and that was an experience where I felt like, man, God's opening up a door. And I just want to share this. Like, my belief is that, you know, as long as I'm pursuing the things I'm passionate about, I'm really on the destination of like,
because it's your life purpose. Right?
That's the roadmap. Like if it's a fire inside of me, that's the roadmap. Like God's saying like, hey, this is your direction. But a lot of people think they need to know the shape of it, right? I actually think part of the experience is letting it be revealed. You let God take the shape. You just pursue the passions. I'm doing that now. And the second thing that I kind of started, and which I can talk about, but basically, we'll get into that. But basically, I always tell people like if it's in your heart, man, God put it there.
That's right.
Right. And so these are clues, and let's follow that journey. But don't get bogged down on how it needs to look. Like, oh, I thought it needed to look like I'm producing for these artists. Now it looks like now it looks like I'm producing for all of the airwaves and impacting culture through our music. So it's wild. It ends up, my whole point is, I think it ends up being better. I actually think God's plans are just a lot better than our plans.
That's right.
Say less?
Yeah, say less.
Come on.
Hey, so okay, so boom, the company takes off. So you guys see
by the way,
opportunity.
Let me get a sip of that drink. That looks
That
good, man. Let me get a sip of that.
All right,
Come
this
on,
is
man.
our horchata latte.
Tepito.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So you guys get your break. Company takes off.
Yeah.
Kobe falls back in terms of he's not going to do the music thing after all, right? It was just kind of like a.
Well, Kobe wanted to come out with a rap album, so people don't know this, but Kobe was obsessed with incredible hip hop music.
Okay.
He knew like every line from every Wu-Tang out. Like he studied the game. Okay. He was an expert. Like he became an expert. Okay. What happened, it was a really curious experience that like what made my business partner Russell so sharp is Kobe brought out people from Philly to work on the album, but if there wasn't performance, they were getting sent back home to Philly.
Ooh, if they weren't performing.
No, so that actually made Russell super sharp.
Kobe operated at a certain capacity, right? Like he expected everybody that worked with him to be on their game, right?
Let me just say this. Kobe was incredible, and he had an incredible heart. You'd see me to ask you how your parents were doing. Like he's an amazing guy. I think his passion, the work ethic, there's nothing like it. In fact, when Kobe retired, my friend was working with his company. He was going to be the next Walt Disney, bro. He was going to be the next Walt Disney. Like, he showed up, and he was going to build a media empire. He was the first one at work every day. This is Kobe in retirement, was showing up at work at 5 in the morning in Orange County. It's kind of incredible. So it's really and
you guys got to see that. He had that.
He was cheering.
At a young age,
he was cheering for us from the sidelines. It was really
at
beautiful.
a young age, though. I mean, you experienced that in Kobe, and so basically, what you're saying is Russ, because of that, that rubbed off on Russ a lot, right?
Absolutely.
And so you had like one of the greatest producers in the game.
Shout out to my business partner Russell, who's a incredible music producer. He's actually the songwriter of the year in television, 10 years in a row, most performances in television. He is just a wild, amazing creative.
Big shout out to Russ.
Shout out.
Also, he's my sponsor, sending him lots of love, and he'll definitely be a guest on this podcast.
Absolutely.
So you got Russ at that time. You got Dave. The company's taking off.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Kobe's cheering you guys on. And then what happens? Because life is interesting. We have these ups, these downs, these peaks, these valleys. Because now we're gonna get into what kind of led you to recovery. But we'll talk a little bit before we get into the recovery question.
Yeah.
You end up losing your mom along the way, right? And tell me a little bit about that experience and what that did to your life, homie.
So I think there's some things that happen in our lives that like people that are loved ones, it's like sometimes the greatest gift they can give us is like when they're close before God. Because like I really believe so much happened in my life that actually wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for my mom passing. And I really believe and know I'll see her again. And I know and I believe she's connected and prays for me in heaven. And so after my mom died, like my whole life shifted, and it was a season that my spiritual mom refers to as like the crushing. In fact, before I work with an artist, any kind of artist, one of the main things I want to know about is, have they been crushed?
Damn.
Because the crushing produces an oil that you can only get. And so we don't always it's like God's wisdom is so much greater than ours, you know. But for me, as a result of my mom dying, today there lives a tapestry of people getting healed, people getting, set free, people being made whole. Like, it's wild. So, my mom passes away suddenly. My girlfriend, I think, we broke up. She moved out. She moved back home, back east.
Right after your mother died?
Right after my mom died. And my brother moved out of the country all within 6 months.
Right?
All within 6 months.
Okay.
I had success and I wanted to die. This is the whole aspect of my life, is like, it was just a time period where I became so desperate for wholeness and healing that I would pursue anything. That's when I met you. And God has been beautiful where he's redeemed my life. I met a spiritual mom who's kind of like a modern day Mother Teresa. Her name's Pastor Karen Denham. And we got to, she started sowing into my life. We moved my dad down to Florida. I met her down there, and we started talking about spiritual principles. Okay. And she would say...
Well, you had to be broken, though, before, and that's so interesting.
I was massively broken.
And like you said, about kind of how death leads to life, in a sense.
Absolutely.
It's like, because I can relate when you're talking about, the death of your mother. And I know it sounds crazy, but I'll share... and I've said this before, that my mother did more for me in death than she was able to do for me in life. Yeah. It was actually her death was the beginning of my new life. And I didn't know it at the time. Well, but the pain that it brought. Pain is a great motivator, homie. Right? And I'm sure that pain that you were experiencing with losing your mother and then losing your girlfriend at the time, who you were with her for a while, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, my thought is that nowadays there's like, we like to speak in our community around spiritual revelations. And I think these revelations are sort of like a way we can unlearn and get to know God a little bit deeper. And I like to say, trust your losses. Now, nothing's to minimize pain, but often these losses can be transformed. I went through what I will define as suffering. And my spiritual mom told me, do you want to pull out of this? Like, we're going to go and serve the lowest on earth, and God will give us the highest honor. I was like, what does that look like? She's like, we're going to go to Africa and set up feeding stations, man. We started feeding the poor in the slums of Kabira. While I was going through pain, I started serving. And I found this connection to God in just helping others. I went into the prisons on Christmas, and we'd give out simple things like toilet paper, and, we'd sing with the prison choir in Nairobi. It was like wild experiences. These are like wild stories. And I was in a time and a season where I was hidden. And it's so crazy. I remember I came back home with my spiritual mom, with Karen. She said, we're going to go to the beach. I go, okay, what are we going to do here? We go to the beach, and she goes, listen, all these crowns, all these things that are in our hearts, these eternal treasure, right? We do all these beautiful things. You treasure that, right? I'm like, yeah. She's like, we're going to actually put it before God's feet, and we're going to return it to him. And I was just like, what do you mean? Like, this is in my heart. She's like, no, it's going to make room for more. Let's do this. It's God's, right? And I remember just being like on this beach, like, man, I give you back like these, any way of serving, I turn it over to you, right? I turn it over, and I remember the presence of God just felt super heavy, and it just created so much more room for my life. And I feel like there's an aspect of my life right now that is, I get to play catch with God. And when we play catch with God, he gets to hand it right back to us. And it's just this, there's a thing, there's a flow of just, being in oneness with our purpose and our direction,
It's a trip, though. You said something about suffering. Yeah. And I had some time with Jim Carrey, and Jim Carrey said, suffering leads to salvation.
Dang.
Which is, it's kind of fascinating when you think about it like that, right? Like, you have to sometimes be in enough pain before you can actually experience, like, that surrender to God, homie. Straight up, or surrender to community, or surrender to recovery.
And often, look, the reality of life is, my mom used to say, people don't change because they see the light. They change because they feel the heat.
That's a good one. I like that.
Okay.
I'm going to use that one.
I mean, look, my belief is, here's how I get freedom. I have to paradoxically admit that I can't do it on my own. That's the number one step in recovery, is a bedrock and a foundation that I can't. Then I come to believe that he can. What does that mean? A power greater than myself can restore me to sanity. And then I get to make a decision to turn my care and my will over to something greater than myself. How does that work? It's so unique, but I think a lot of it is it goes back to it just goes back to our Creator, man. And the design. I think the design is,
and also
all of it
his
gets
purpose.
to go. All of it gets to go.
The Creator's purpose.
Straight
And
up.
sometimes we think we know, but you know what's the trip is, like, the trees don't question their purpose. They produce oxygen, homie. You feel me? That's what they do. They produce oxygen. They don't try to be anything else but a tree. Us, sometimes we get lost in the sauce. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We go off running in this direction or that direction. And
Yeah.
I think one of the things about being a human being is to give and receive love. That's like our
Absolutely.
primary purpose and function. And we get caught up in all these other things. But I think the one of the things about recovery that I love is, yeah, of course, the surrender, but then also life purpose, because then you're able to really live out your life purpose and all the gifts that were so graciously given, right?
Absolutely.
Because even when you think about your story, like, you had success, you had monetary success, and like you said, but you still wanted to die. You get me?
Yeah.
And now, so post-recovery and actually finding yourself in recovery and in the steps and in service,
Yeah.
you still have all those things. You still have success, right? And probably even more so now, but you're able to actually experience it, homie. You're able
That's
to
good,
actually
man.
be in purpose,
I
your
think-
life purpose,
Absolutely.
right?
And I think there's some gifts that we don't get to receive until we're actually able to hold them in our hands. And I do feel like I'm in a place where I'm able to hold these gifts and these things. And it's been part of the journey, because what happened over this time period after my mom died, and I'll kind of flash forward and give you kind of an up to date for the audience here. But like, what happened after that was I got to find a purpose in transforming losses and bringing light and saying, you know what, I don't want to miss out while I'm here. At first, I had to get emotionally sober. I think what happened was recovery gave me tools to become emotionally sober. And what that meant was I started a men's meeting in my house that serves people. It's been going on for about 6 years. If it's Christmas, we have that men's meeting, 30 to 40 guys. It's a form that I believe of, like, really ministering to people that are broken and lost. So I get to see people's lives transform. I get to believe in and see these miracles. And really, it's been wild and beautiful what's happened since then. As a result of that meeting,
Then,
I started launching
wanna
these
hear
these
Ashwood,
wild
yeah.
concerts out of my living room. And I can
Tell
talk
me
about that.
I want to hear about Ashwood.
It's a-
Definitely from that,
Yeah.
the fellowship, of
Yeah.
course, but I want you to
Yeah.
really get into Ashwood,
Yeah.
the inception of
Yep.
Ashwood, and then kind of where it's at right now,
Absolutely.
and the vision for Ashwood.
Sounds great, man. Like, Ashwood is it's a community, it's a people, not a place. But essentially, I started for fun and for free. I started having these concerts in my living room, and really, God kind of showed me, because my day job is I have a lot of expertise. Like, I work with up to 30 or 40 producers and composers, and I executive music produce sounds. Like, I did the theme song for America's Got Talent. Like, Simon Cowell had approved music that we created. I came up with that vision, that direction. So I've got a lot of artistic direction, and God has even shown me to consider myself like a real artist. And so what happened was, I believe God has said, you have a skill set, continue doing that, and now come work for me. And as a result, I've seen an integration of both lives getting integrated. But what that looked like was really simply hosting this, like, a space for beautiful, spirit-driven Christian music in my living room in Venice Beach. And what happened was we started off kind of like Kumbaya with, like, acoustic guitars. And then I was like, how do we take this deeper? But there's a modeling of Ashwood, which is, it's modeled around the 12 steps of recovery. So what that means is we don't preach. We invite someone to give their experience, strength, and hope. So we give testimony. We also circulate leadership every week. It's someone different that's leading us in the music and the worship. And I think because of that, no one is elevated above another. What has happened?
There's no hierarchy.
There's no hierarchy, and I think that's important for that. It stays with, it's not about me, you know.
love
One
that.
person gets to help another.
love that.
The concerts have grown, and as a result, years later, we have a global impact tethered with, you know, almost like 100 different world-renowned musicians, artists that get to come to each night being uniquely curated and put together as a concert, but is community-based.
That's right. It's a circle of kinship. I love
Yeah,
that
in Los
circle
Angeles
because
last year.
For us, it's like really cultural for us to not have that hierarchy like that. It's a circle.
Yeah.
You know, it's no beginning, no end.
Yeah.
Nobody above, nobody beneath. And I really experience that when I go to these Ashwood events.
Thanks,
Seriously.
man. We intentionally don't have a platform or stage, man. We have the artists on the ground floor.
Yeah.
They're in a circle. It's
and
pretty
you
well.
can definitely feel the intention there. And what has Ashwood done personally for you? Because I know what it's done for the community. I hear it all the time. I see it with my own eyes, the impact that it's had in Los Angeles and even in the surrounding counties, because you got people coming from all over now to experience Ashwood. And it's grown now, so it's no longer in your living room.
Well,
now,
there's a few expressions. So we've been called to also stay in the living room. We had about 5 concerts in my house last year, but we've grown to a larger space that fits up to 700. Yeah. And we're intentionally going to other cities. I believe we're meant to launch very wild, spirit-driven crusades where we get to show people that God is attractive, and we don't need to promote it. It's attractive, and that's a principal program too. Yeah. You know, what it's personally done for me is I think I said like a small yes to begin, and then I believe, and I share this too as a revelation, as I believe God gets to multiply our yes. So He's grown that yes.
And so, I mean, the to see how big it's grown. I mean, the last Ashwood, I forgot the number. Jason, he was telling me the numbers. What was it? 900 people?
It was a lot of people. It was a lot of people.
No, let's be like serious.
You know what we do? So we put out free tickets.
Okay.
We make it like a little drop. We drop it on our stories, and people get to get tickets, and then it does reach a capacity.
But, I mean, it was like close to 1,000 people.
It was just a lot. Yeah, it was. It was a lot of people. So actually, technically, I think 600 with like the wait list was beyond. Like,
it was packed.
But it was packed in the room. I mean, God may be calling us into some additional spaces. Yep. To date, there's a few expressions. One is in the living room. Another is in a bigger space that fits a large amount of people. And then the third is we've launched what we're calling like sort of these online digital prayer sets. Okay. What that looks like is we're representing, basically we're curating artists that we believe God's hand is powerfully on in both artistry and connection to God. Okay. And so, I believe we're in the day and the age of the curator, man. That, Ashwood's become a curator of an expression of what we believe, God's beauty. I mean, I believe it's God's paintbrush, and so we consider ourselves highly honored to create what we feel is a sacred space that's safe. And we believe that there's this sense of revival that in the world right now that people are seeking God, but that it also looks like recovery. Recovery looks like emotional health. So we love to introduce topics and ideas, a lot of topics and ideas around that. It was a year later after the LA fires. About a year ago, we were first responders in the LA fires. And the fires were going on, and we decided to throw a night, and we held space, and we said, there's no performance here. This is a funeral. Let's hold space to grieve. And what we love to share about is, I believe there's a God that actually went through pain and suffering for my transformation, and that almost that God's even proud to wear the scars and the pain that He went through. And so, there's a lot of connection that we believe in being present to feel the uncomfortable. Most of my recovery existed for the audience here too, was sitting on my hands and doing nothing and letting myself not use old measures and experiences and distractions where I was able to just feel uncomfortable. And what I learned to do was there was an abandonment where I had distracted myself from feeling little Adam, and I got to be present for myself. And as a result, I went on broski dates with guys and developed healthy male intimacy, and it healed relationship connections and issues, And I love to be able to introduce emotional health to men in particular. There's a movement also on the West Side that's going on around men's recovery. And it's really powerful, man. Los Angeles is a place to come and be healed. Who would have thought to come and seek wholeness here in LA?
In LA.
In LA, and you're part of that. I'm so proud of you. So proud of what you're doing.
So I want to know, too, what is the vision for Ashwood?
The vision for Ashwood is to transform and impact the world through an authentic representation of God's beauty. In artistry, I believe Jesus and God is both beautiful and true. Some things are beautiful, not true. Some things are true, but not beautiful. And that's not mine. I've heard that. But I think there's an encounter we get to have when we're met, when we're not just seen, but when we're met in truth. In fact, I used to think my biggest need and desire was to be seen, but I really believe it's to be met in truth. When I sit with you, and most, like, for the listeners don't know, my experience with you, Jose, is we sit down and we get to chop it up and really share what's going on in our hearts because it's safe and we get to support each other and there's accountability there. We're waking up and we're saying, hey, let's hit the gym together. We're waking up, we're saying we're in a positive season right now. Let's keep going. So, I'm just, I'm honored to experience that with you. And it's just wild, brother. Let's say less.
Say less. What's the hope for yourself moving into 2026?
Bro, I have a hope to have a family. I have a hope to have children. I have a hope to grow as a leader. And to circle back on the question, you said, what is God doing in my life? He's teaching me how to lead. Leadership has been the biggest stretching of my life. I'll tell you why. I get to watch the growth of my friend Nick, who's one of our lead musicians and MDs here, Nick Aguero. I care more about his growth than the growth of the movement. I got to watch his numbers. And so one thing God did, I just want to share with the audience here, is God has kind of like stripped me of like man's validation. So I had to keep guardrails on the performance of things that we were putting out, the content, all that. And what happened was there was so much beauty because it allowed me to be present and not miss things. In fact, I think when we're emotionally sober and we get to define what that looks like for us in varying ways, I think we don't miss out on life. For me, what life is about is showing up for my dad and not missing that.
That's right.
And I got to do that recently. I got to go show up for my dad and took him on a cruise. It was just like a simple thing, but I don't get to miss that. I don't miss that today. I showed up for my business partner, Dave, and his family the other day, showing up, having dinner with his two beautiful young kids. Like, I don't want to miss life. That's what life is about, is being present for that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I love that. That's great. And, and I think we'll end on that note. Thank you. I
love
really
you.
appreciate you coming out. And we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this more often.
Before we leave, can I honor you and can I say a prayer for the audience? Is that possible?
Right.
So I just want to honor you, Jose, and just say, I believe your future and your greatest is in front of you. And I believe you're going to lead a younger generation, and that you're already leading so well now because he trusts you. You are trustworthy, and you are a son, and there's beyond, and many are going to know that they're sons because of you and because of what you're doing. So I just want to thank you, and I just want to pray a blessing for this audience and just say, I pray that people that hear this pod will even tangibly right now feel a presence of love in their hearts and a stirring. And I pray even an activation over these airwaves of people's purpose and calling and hope. And God, would you activate dreams and passions in the listeners, in their hearts, and the courage to even start walking it out with a simple yes, because I declare that you will multiply that yes. And I do pray for transformation in any form in deep, dark places. I thank you, God, that you're going to bring more and more light into this world. We bless everyone here in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you, bro.